Hi, Zizaran here, and I wanted to make a quick review or commentary or whatever about a new ARPG called Last Epoch. In full transparency, this game did sponsor me for some hours in 2018 and 2019, but this review is not sponsored. Last of Epoch is an action role-playing game similar to like Diablo, Path of Exile, etc. And obviously Path of Exile, a game I have many hours in. I was very interested in checking this game out. I've been checking on the game sometimes every 6 months, sometimes every year since then, and now I've been playing it pretty much every 3 months at the end of the PoE leagues, and it has come a very, very long way. For those of you that aren't familiar with me and my channel, what I do before doing any sponsored playthrough is, well, first of all, I'll never sign a non-disparagement agreement, which means that you can't say anything negative about the game, and I will always make sure and ask, can I say negative stuff about the game and can I criticize this? And that's cost me quite a lot of sponsorships. However, Judd, the CEO of 11th Hour Games, had the best reply of any sponsor so far, where he said, Ziz, you can roast the game on stream if you want, even with me in the call. If there's something wrong with our game, we want to know about it so we can make it better. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to cover all the things I like about the game and all the things I don't like about the game. And the game has quite a long way to go. It is in early access. It's also not a free-to-play game. It is $35, I think, for a key. And it's available on Steam, and they have a standalone client. Well, let's go in-game here. So I have a level 79 Blade Dancer. I've played around 200 hours so far, maybe a little bit above. I've used both the standalone and Steam. And yeah, the game has changed a lot. Most of the times that I've been coming back to the game, it's felt very, very different. So this game, like many others in the genre before, it has a campaign, and it's a bit of a confusing take. I probably would say the campaign is what I'm the least fan of. I think it can be very, very easily confusing, but it is an interesting take nonetheless. So this game doesn't have any like normal cruel or merciless like other games, but does sort of use similar systems where they are like reusing the same, some of the same zones, but they're in different times. So here we can see it's like 60-20 before Atera, -12 before Atera. I think BE is before Atera. It's some lore stuff, and as you know, I don't really pay attention to lore. That's not really what I'm about. I'm all about like grinding an endgame. Now, thankfully, like quests will like highlight what zone you're supposed to be in, or it would be extremely confusing where you're supposed to go. But you have to go through different eras, and then there's like a quest line you have to follow. They have their own, like, you know, Kitava, you could say, Lagon or Lagon, that you need to kill at the end, and once you've killed him, you get to explore the map system or monoliths. They have 2 different endgames. And that's like what I'm the most excited about and want to talk about the most, because in my opinion, that's like the best thing about the game. So the Endless Arena, it's like there's a ladder, you can see who's the highest, etc. But also it's like waves and waves of monsters, and they go in like, you get 5 waves at a time, and then you get the choice, can I do more? Can I continue? Or will I die? And if you die, if you're in hardcore, you lose your character, and yeah, you basically have to choose. And you do get some loot between each wave as well. That's a pretty cool system that I wish more games had. I love things like that, where it's just you can like test your character and see how far you can get and optimize characters and compare between them. So that's really, really cool. I do wish there was like a little bit more... When I did it the last time, it wasn't that rewarding. It was really, really good XP, but not that good loot. But maybe I just didn't get far enough. But either way, a really, really cool system. The Monolith system, however, is way, way more in depth. So you start here by, you've unlocked the monoliths, and you can start mapping. At the first one, you'll basically start doing these monoliths, and they're just like maps, right? It's just an area similar to the areas you've been in the campaign, and here we have the choice between, in this echo, rare enemies have 60% increased health and damage, or in this echo, they gain frenzy and haste when hit. Now there's several you can choose, and some will be like, in the next 6 echoes, monsters have 40% increased life, or monsters deal 60% increased damage. And you're basically You probably would have guessed it by now, stacking up map mods similar to Path of Exile, where in especially the further ones, you will maybe have like quite a lot. Like they chill on hit, they slow on hit, they make you deal less damage, they penetrate resistances, they have more life, they're faster, and after a while, you get some really, really scary enemies. You can also, like, what if both of these are terrible mods that you don't want to do? You can re-roll and it'll give 2 new ones, but they will be like higher levels, so it is bad to reroll too. Now, after you've done 4 in this area, you will start getting a chance to get a quest echo. And then for each monolith, there will be several quest echoes. I think around 3 that you have to do. So maybe you'll end up having to do like 20 echoes in Follow the Outcasts to get all 3 quest echoes. And on the third one, there will be like an actual proper boss that you have to fight. Some of them have been fairly challenging, and some of them have been like, oh, I actually one-shot you. But like these are where the cooler boss fights are. And once you've done that, there's 2 things that happen. You will get to unlock either like the level 60 monolith or the level 65. This is harder, obviously, so on hardcore I chose to go for the 61st. And you also get a reward. And this reward counts for all of them, to the best of my knowledge. So now, because I chose this, I will get, which is one of the crafting reagents, which we'll get to later, but I get an increased glyph drop rate across my entire atlas, you could say. Here I have increased amulet drop rate, and you can rerun this if you don't get a good one. And it will show over here how much power did it roll. It can, you know, 100% is a perfect roll. So there's some like min-maxing here where you can re-roll the same area until you have really, really good glyphs. Maybe you are searching for an amulet, so this is a good one, and you can increase your character. This is a really cool system in my opinion. So the last one that I finished was up here with Reign of Dragons. That was actually a pretty hard boss, and I obviously a lot of people in my chat was playing along at the same time, and several of them got one shot. And speaking of playing along, this is another thing to mention. Last Epoch does currently not have any multiplayer, trading, or economy. Those things are coming, hopefully this year. But that's pretty much it. Once you get here, these are like the 3, maybe these are like early red maps kind of in PoE, and these are maybe like a little bit like, probably this is a yellow maps and then these are white maps. It's probably the best analogy from what I've been playing so far. Again, I do only have 200 hours in this game, so I might be off on some things. But anyway, once you have done all these 3, and I haven't gotten to this part of the content yet, but I've been told that you can do empowered monoliths. So as far as I understand, that makes that you can do any past monolith as level 100, and that makes the drops better and everything scarier. And people were comparing this to doing delirium maps in Path of Exile, so that sounds pretty hard and not something that's that easy to do on hardcore. 2 of my favorite things about this game is it is less complex than Path of Exile. It's a slower pace. And all of these things I actually feel is a good thing. I don't feel like every game should be exactly like Path of Exile. At some point, you might get tired of just like running around right-clicking entire screens. And this game does have quite a lot of a slower pace. Oh, actually, PoE players are going to love this. How much money does it cost for stash tabs? Well, nothing. You click this plus button, and then I can buy a stash tab for in-game gold. And the more you buy, the more gold it'll cost. But there are no like in-game purchases that affect your game. They're going to have cosmetics in the future. But other than that, you just upgrade your stash tab by in-game gold. So you have to farm for it. The coolest thing for me are these like exalted items is what they're called. The way the crafting system works is there's 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes. But it has a very, very cool system where it is still very RNG, but also deterministic at the same time. And it's one of the coolest takes on crafting I've ever seen in a game. So here is, I think this is the first tier 7 I've dropped. And this is actually, coincidentally, also the best base. For a lot of builds. So Oracle Staff, really, really good base, and it's got tier 7, which is drop only. You can craft up to tier 5, but tier 6 and 7 are drop only, and they're also massively stronger. So this is a really, really cool drop. Everybody was pogging out, but let's show some crafting. What better way to explain than to show? So let's see my current chest, right? It's got +2 to Shadow Cascade. That's one of the skills I'm using, and we can look at characters and skills in a bit. We have plus vitality, health, and health, right? Loads of stats similar to other games that I'm sure you've played. So you can see I have 160 armor charge, 146 health. Some of the other ones I only have 1 of, like level of acid fast. Any like level thing has been pretty hard to come across, and you only find it in the end game. But so I will go level Shadow Cascade, and you see here I have a 100% chance to succeed. Well, that's good. But it says it will add 5 crafting instabilities to the items. How does this work? The more instability an item has, this one is 61, the higher chance that the item will break. So I have here a tier 5, tier 5, tier 3, and tier 1. So that's fairly high tier. And 61 instability is fairly high. Now, if I hover over, I have a 34 or 24 chance of success. And if I don't succeed, I have a 25% chance for a minor fracture, 25% for a damaging, and 26 for a destructive. Minor fracture, basically nothing happens, but you can't craft anymore on the item. A damaging fracture is you lose something, and a destructive fracture is you lose several stats. It basically breaks your item. Now, there are glyphs you can use. You can use the glyph of stability. This one increases this, but it'll add less instability than normal. Now, a glyph of the guardian will completely mitigate the destructive fracture, and it will start mitigating, like, you basically have a 49% chance to succeed instead of the lower one. So now we're seeing there's some depth to the crafting system here. This is a really, really cool thing about items being exciting about the game. You will like run around and find shards. You'll just drop straight up shards, or you can, like, for example, I can just shard this item that I have in my inventory, and now I got 2 levels of synchronized strike and 2 necrotic resistance shards. So you're going around gathering crafting resources, and it's a really, really cool way to do it. And base types have really, really big roles. If we hover on this, ancient coins, it has between 10 and 100% increased crit chance. My current one only has 49. So that is a really, really cool depth to the crafting here, where I have to find the base. The base is ideally rolled well, and I have to, if possible, find a base that already has some of the stats I want on it with low instability. For example, my boots, these came with tier 5 movement speed and tier 5 health, and I was like, oh my god. And now these are almost tier 20. You can see they have tier 5 movement speed, vitality, and health, and tier 4 fizz resist. And speaking of fighting things, if you do shift F, you have a loot filter in-game, and it's very, very smooth. Let me show you how it works. You just click add rule, and then recolor, or hide, or show, and then what if I want them to be gray, and I can add condition, and we can look, maybe I'm looking for a base type. So then I can like, oh, I'm looking for this catalyst. It's like an offhand thing. This is what I'm looking for. Or I can look for affixes. Like maybe I really want all of these spell damage things, and then we add that, and it's that simple. So this is really, really nice, because unlike PoE, where you really need somebody like Neversink to take responsibility and really make some good global filters, you can make very, very specific ones here. I'm just adjusting these on the fly, and I'm like, okay, I don't need bone amulets anymore. The technology is there. It's beautiful. So the filter, very, very straightforward, easy to learn, and easy to use. We also have idols. This is literally the charm system from Diablo 2 with a limited inventory. These are super RNG, which I think is cool. So you have like, these are deterministic with RNG where they can brick, and these are just pure RNG. You just have to find good ones. This is the best one I found so far. It's got 20 all rest and damage per active shadow with one of my skills. So that's really, really good. Character sheet, it's pretty garbage. I don't really look at it much or use it much. I feel like it's not very accurate on a lot of things. Like it says here I have 48% crit chance, but it doesn't combine with my skills. So I do have 100%. I know this just because, well, I hit things and the damage numbers tell me that it's a crit all the time. So that, like, tooltips and stuff, it's actually needs a lot of rework. But anyway, resist, similar to most games, very similar to PoE. 75% is the resist cap. Now, if you hover over it, says enemies penetrate 1% resist per area level up to 75%. That means that, well, resists aren't really that important late game, and you do want to find like other layered defenses, but you do want to be at least resist capped. There are loads of multiple classes. I think there are 5, and each of these have 3 sub trees. So if I click on P here, we can see this rogue has the Blade Dancer, the Marksman, and the Falconer. The Falconer is not out yet, so currently you can choose between the Blade Dancer and the Marksman. The Rogue is the newest class. So you have like a base tree that you can put points into, and then once you ascend, which is like halfway through the campaign maybe, you have to run through this like Shadow Valley of Shadows, and you get to choose between Blade Dancer, Marksman, or in the future Falconer. Now, a really, really cool thing about this, almost every skill has its own skill tree. And they're a lot smaller and digestible. So you can very quickly learn one skill. You might feel like, yeah, sure, knowing every skill the rogue has might be a little overwhelming, but figuring out one skill and what looks pretty solid or good, that's been pretty easy. So I think that's like the nicest thing about Last Epoch is every character I've done so far, all of them have felt pretty good. So the skills are great, items are great. What is wrong with the game? It's obviously in early access, so it's not a full game yet, but I still think there's a lot of things they can do better. Even when talking to the community and people that do play a lot, I don't feel like there's that many chase items. And this is a chase type item, something that is really exciting to find, and I was pogging out and thinking, you know what, I might make a character around this. Obviously, I would have to craft it more and hope that it doesn't get destroyed, but this was a really, really cool find. And this entire tab is like things that are potentially really good for crafting and things I might make characters around. I would love to see like even higher tiers, like tier 8, 9, and 10, but even just being incredibly rare. Something like similar to a mirror in Path of Exile, where you might never find one, but if you do, it probably makes you weak. And just as a sheer power increase, then it's not build enabling, and I think that's really cool. When talking to the community, nobody's really given me the feeling of that there's not really, there's no exalted orbs per se, and I haven't really felt that there is something like a mirror or something like a, old, like in Path of Exile, like Impulsa, Chevron's Wrappings, Comb's Heart. There hasn't been that many like items that I've been like hoping for to farm from bosses or like anything like that yet. A little bit more of a loot chase would be really good. And I think somewhere here between, I think it's very, very exciting once you're in your first 3, but somewhere in this area, it got for me a little bit boring where I'm like, well, what is my goal right now? What am I grinding for? I don't necessarily feel like a huge sense of progression going through these, and they're a little bit samey, and it could be better. And what am I grinding for? I feel like the game, one of the next steps needs to be a little bit more things to give you goals. How many people in Path of Exile had like, oh, this league I want to kill the Awakener. This league I want to do X boss. And obviously Path of Exile really has the huge benefit of being 8 or 9 years ahead in time with a way larger team. So it's obviously not a fair comparison. Of course not. But that is one of the things I would love to see next in Last Epoch, of some more things that you could have as goals for your characters. Push the player further, draw us more in, is one of the things I'd like to see next. Density isn't that great in this game, and some people like it, some people don't. Here we have like a map, and for the most part I have so much damage that I am going to be one-shotting everything as long as I don't put a large amount of health on it. But as you can see, there's way less monsters than Path of Exile. Now there's some pros and cons here. So in Path of Exile, it does feel great with all that density and stuff. However, that also means that performance is a lot harder to control. You can see that this is like very smooth, and I'm staying at a very high frame rate. That's quite nice. But it might make you feel like the maps are kind of like sparsely populated. Some are more populated than this, and you can actually kind of tell by the performance too. Obviously, like the more you put in, the harder it is going to be. Oh, this is another thing that's good to show you guys. This is AoE pickup. So all those shards, it picks up everything in the vicinity. And these are, there is like a loot filter, so there are more items that aren't being shown here, but I'm only like searching for some items. And then here is like what will happen at the end of some maps. Sometimes there will be a boss, sometimes there will be this thing, which will basically spawn some waves of monsters, and they'll be pretty easy. You'll kill those no problem. I have had some that have been fairly rippy though, and as you see, I am taking a lot of damage from very few hits, even though I'm a dodge build as well. So these are very easy, but sometimes you'll get a boss, and then it'll drop some loot. You'll open the portal, you'll leave. There is a chest at the end. Loading screens can sometimes be a bit long. I do not have this on an SSD, so they can be a lot shorter. Last Epoch has come a very far way from when I started playing it. It was actually straight up garbage when I first played it, but they were kind of already on the right track. I always saw that the game had potential. They very early told me when I asked, because I've done some like interviews and stuff on my stream with the developers, and they said that they were focusing way more on like the game feeling good to play, that characters are fun, and the gameplay itself than so much graphics. So that is coming now later, and for those that do care more about graphics, now is like more the time to jump in than obviously earlier. It looked pretty bad and rough. Haven't seen many bugs. Not that many bugs. Haven't had anything like Nothing like in Wolcen where my like character like got deleted basically and I had to do 7 hours over again. There's not been any like crazy things like that for me. I don't know if there's anything that really breaks your character. So right now, it is a really, really enjoyable time to play the game. I do get some questions that I might as well answer. I get asked things like, Zizaran, is this the PoE killer? No, this is not the PoE killer. It's obviously a long time back in years, way smaller team, and that would have to be something similar for Diablo 3 and Path of Exile, where it's up to Diablo to fuck it up, right? It would be up to Path of Exile to fuck it up. The ball is in their court. Because catching up, obviously they can learn a lot from Path of Exile, but catching up on that larger team with that many years of experience would be very hard. That being said, they don't really have any intention of killing or competing with Path of Exile. Whenever I've talked to the developers, they've said that they want to time their leagues around Path of Exile and things happening in the ARPG space, so that when there is this sort of downtime with nothing happening, like say the last month of a PoE league, that's when they want to do Last Epoch. Have a new league, because then we might have like a month and a half of PoE, a month and a half of Last Epoch, etc. Or other games that are coming in this space, and I think that's going to be really, really healthy for the game. So no, it isn't better than Path of Exile, but for those of you that are maybe like, hey, I play PoE for a month or two and then want something else, this is a great alternative. And I think the more ARPGs that come out, the better for all the other ARPGs, because the more competition, the better they're going to have to be. So honestly, in the current state, I would give Last Epoch a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It is really, really good, with Path of Exile being maybe an 8 or a 9. The only game that gets a 10 is Darkfall Online. It is worth the $35 in its current state. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think they're gonna charge anything for the future. They said maybe if they do some huge expansions, that might be buy to play. But there are not going to be anything like, we have stash tabs in Path of Exile. Other games have that you can buy power. There's not going to be any of that. So it's just the one-time purchase of 35 with the future like really, really large expansions was something they were going to consider. But yeah, I don't really do game reviews. I wanted to make one and express my thoughts on the game. I think it is very fun. Let me know in the comments down below your experiences. If you do like the game, if you don't like the game, what you would like to see them change. The devs are very, very hands-on with community feedback, so they might even read the comments about what you like or don't like about the game. Hope you guys enjoyed this game review. I do want to do more, hopefully like more structured and professional ones in the future, but yeah. And again, I also do have a Nexus store where you can buy this game and get a Steam key. Sub if you liked the video. Thanks for watching, and more importantly, try to die less than I do.